This episode may contain content of a graphic nature, including descriptions of physical and sexual violence against adults, children, and animals. Listener discretion is advised.
4:58 a.m. Saturday, the 1st of June.
Okay, Saturday, the 1st of June, 4:58 a.m.
Became one soul.
Became one soul. What does that mean?
No questions now. Please, till Sherri Smith, search no more. Blessings are near.
Do not kill my daughter, please. Please.
Love and miss y'all. Get good rest tonight. Goodbye.
Wait a minute. He's gone, Mom.
Hi everyone, I'm Talia.
And I'm Tanya.
And together we are TNT Crimes and Consequences, a true crime podcast. Hi everybody, this is Talia, and I am once again next to my lovely co-host, Tanya. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Talia. Hi, everyone.
I hope you are having a great day. I want to remind all of you listeners to hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It really helps us, and we really appreciate it. This one is exceptionally heartbreaking. Are you ready, Tanya?
Absolutely.
All right, let's start.
Let's do it.
On Friday, May 31st, in 1985, 17-year-old Sherri Smith had everything to look forward to in her life. She was going to graduate from high school in 2 days, and she was actually chosen to sing the national anthem at the ceremony. After her graduation, she was going to go on a cruise with all the other graduates to celebrate. On that day, in Modesto Beach, South Carolina, the weather was perfect. And Sherri met up with her boyfriend, Richard, and one of her close friends, Brenda. The three met up at the mall, and together they drove to a graduation swimming party at a lake at around 11:30 a.m. They left the party together around 2:45 that afternoon and went back to the mall, where Sherri and Richard talked for a few minutes before everybody just headed back home. It was very normal for Sherri to stop at the mailbox, which was located at the end of her family's 750-foot driveway, and get the mail for her parents. At approximately 3:25 that afternoon, Sherri's mother, Hilda, noticed Sherri's car pull up to the mailbox and park at the end of the driveway. Hilda commented to Sherri's father, Bob, that Sherri was home. A few minutes later, Bob became concerned because Sherri's car was still at the end of the driveway, so he decided to check it out and make sure she was okay. When he got to the mailbox, he saw that Sherri's Chevette was idling with the driver's side door open. Inside the vehicle was Sherri's purse, her pool towel, and her shoes. Bob looked inside Sherri's purse, and that's when he absolutely panicked. Inside it was Sherri's medicine. Sherri suffered from this really rare form of diabetes, which in layman's terms is referred to as water diabetes. Do you know what that is?
I've never heard of that.
Water diabetes is a condition where the body fails to properly control your water balance. So your body will basically urinate all the time. And it doesn't take very long without this medicine for a person with water diabetes to become dehydrated, and they can die actually pretty quickly because they constantly are urinating. Sherri never went anywhere without her medicine. I don't know how often she had to take it, but I know she took it more than one time a day. Bob and Hilda immediately called the Lexington County Sheriff's Office. Officers were dispatched to their home and an investigation began. This investigation included an air search team. They didn't waste any time. Modesto Beach was a low crime area, and Bob and Hilda anticipated receiving a ransom call demanding a payment for the safe return of Sherri. In the meantime, authorities set up a command headquarters at a tractor trailer, which was placed directly outside the Smith's house. On the first day of her disappearance, there were no leads and nothing significant happened in the investigation. However, the next day, the Smiths got the call they were expecting. Only the call ended up being a hoax. Some asshole called them. That same day, the police received a tip from two men who had passed by the Smith residence around 3:25 p.m. on that Friday before. They reported seeing Sherri at the mailbox and her car at the end of the driveway. As they passed her house, a car drove by them and stopped at the Smith's mailbox by Sherri. The car was described as a reddish-purple Oldsmobile Cutlass. About 5 minutes later, the same two men drove back around by the mailbox, and Sherri's car was still there idling, but there was no Sherri and there was no Oldsmobile Cutlass. That was on Saturday. The next day was Sunday, and that was the day Sherri was supposed to graduate from Lexington High School. That day came and went with no leads or updates. Then at 2 a.m., on Monday morning, the Smiths received a phone call. It was a man. To prove his call wasn't a hoax, he described in detail what Sherri was wearing when she went missing, which was a black swimsuit with white shorts. He told the Smiths to expect a letter from Sherri later that day. Now remember, this is 2:20 a.m. He told them the letter would be dated June 1st, and it would indicate that it was written at 3:10 a.m., but he said, that wasn't actually the time. It was 3:12 a.m., but Sherri asked me if she could round the time off. He ended the conversation by saying, quote, "You're looking in the wrong place. Tell Sheriff Metz to call off the search." Unfortunately, this call wasn't recorded. And back in 1985, it took about 15 minutes for them to be able to trace a phone call.
Does that mean you would have to be on the phone with someone for 15 minutes before they could trace it?
No, it's just the process of tracing it in and of itself took 15 minutes. So in the middle of the night, the police went to the post office and sorted through the mail. They were able to intercept a letter that was addressed to the Smith family, and they processed it along with the envelope for fingerprints. Inside the envelope was a 2-page long handwritten letter in Sherri's handwriting that was titled Last Will and Testament. I'm going to read you the letter. This letter is inspirational and very sad. On the top of the first page, it's titled Last Will and Testament. I love you, Mommy, Daddy, Robert, Dawn, and Richard, and everyone else, and all of their friends and relatives. I'll be with my father now, so please, please don't worry. Just remember my witty personality and great special times we all shared together. Please don't even let this ruin your lives. Just keep living one day at a time for Jesus. Some good will come out of this. My thoughts will always be with and in you. In parentheses, it says, Casket closed. I love you all so damn much. Sorry, Dad. I had to cuss for once. Jesus forgave me. Richard, sweetie, I really did and always will always love you and treasure our special moments. I ask one thing, though. Accept Jesus as your personal savior. My family has always been the greatest influence in my life. Sorry about the cruise money. Somebody please go in my place. I'm sorry if I ever disappointed you in any way. I only wanted to make you proud of me because I have always been proud of my family. Mom, Dad, Robert, and Dawn, there's so much I want to say that I should have said before now. I love you. I know you all love me and will miss me very much, but if y'all stick together like we always did, y'all can do it. Please do not become hard or upset. Everything works out for the good for those that love the Lord. All my love always. I love y'all with all my heart. Sherri Smith. P.S. Nana, I love you so much. Kind of always felt like your favorite. You were mine. I love you a lot.
That was one of the saddest and most heartbreaking things I've ever heard. I can't imagine as her parents getting that. She tries to keep it upbeat too, which just, I think, goes to show what type of person she was.
The faith she must have in God and Jesus is just stunning.
It gave her strength.
The investigators used an instrument called electrostatic detection apparatus, EDA. Have you ever heard of it?
Nope.
EDA allows them basically to read indentations on paper because the letter that Sherri wrote had indentations on it. They were able to discern some of the indentations. On the first page of the last will and testament, they made out the name Bob, mother, beef sticks, tomatoes, and the letters J and S were circled. The only fingerprints they found on the envelope and the letter belonged to Sherri. Later on that same day at 3:08 p.m., the Smith residence received another phone call from the kidnapper. And this time they actually had a recording device set up. The call was answered by Sherri's older sister, Dawn, who was 21 years old. Dawn was actually living away at college, but she came home to be with her family. This call was traced to a payphone located by the Lexington Town Square Shopping Center, which is about 7 miles from the Smith home. By the time the authorities got there, there was no one obviously at the payphone, and they had no fingerprints they could lift. Sherri's disappearance was now making national news, and another witness came forward who'd seen the same driver that the two male witnesses reported. This woman was able to help the police make a composite sketch of the guy. He was a white male, he was clean-shaven, his hair was slightly balding, and he was in his mid-30s. 5 hours after the phone call to Dawn with the kidnapper, he called again, and once again, Dawn answered the phone. The caller said to Dawn, "Did you come down from Charlotte?" And she's like, "Yes, I did. Who's calling, please?" And he said, "I need to speak to your mother." Dawn said, "Okay, she's coming." And he said, "Tell her to hurry up." Hilda got on the phone. Hilda tried to get him to talk for a while longer because if he talked for a certain amount of time, they would be able to trace it faster than if it was these brief amounts of time, which took 15 minutes to trace. She said, "I'm trying to do everything possible to answer some of your prayers. So please, in the name of God, work with us here. Can you answer me one question, please? You're a very kind and you seem like a compassionate person. And I think you know how I feel being Sherri's mother and how much I love her. Can you tell me, is she physically all right without her medication?" The caller replied, quote, "Sherri's drinking a little over 2 gallons of water per hour and using the bathroom right after. I've got to hurry now. Okay, now this has gone too far. Please forgive me. Have an ambulance ready at any time at your house. And on Sherri's request, she requests that only immediate family come and Sheriff Metz and an ambulance and attendants. She don't want to make a circus out of this, okay?" Then he mumbles something else and he says that Sherri wants a closed casket and she wants her hands placed across her chest like she's praying in the casket. You can imagine the terror running through Sherri's family's mind at this point.
Have you received the mail today?
Yes, I have.
Do you believe me now?
Well, I'm not really sure I believe you because I haven't had any word from Sherri. And I need to know that Sherri is well.
You'll know in 2 or 3 days.
Why 2 or 3 days?
Call the search off.
This time the call was traced to a payphone about 8 miles away from the Smith's house. Once again, the police arrived there and there was no one at the payphone. The next day, day 4 of Sherri's disappearance, the Smith family made an emotional public appeal urging Sherri to stay strong and telling her that they loved her and they wanted her to come home. Not long after that, their phone rang again, and it was the kidnapper. He told them that there's no demand money and that Sherri requested on the 5th day to put the family at rest and free her. He said, remember, we are one soul now. And when you locate Sherri, you'll locate both of us together. We are one. God has chosen us. Respect all past and present requests. Then he told him to write this down. He said, quote, 3:28 in the afternoon, Friday, 31st of May, Sherri Faye was kidnapped from your mailbox with a gun. She had the fear of God in her, and she was at the mailbox. That's why she did not return back to her car. Then he said, between 4 and 7 Wednesday, which is tomorrow, have an ambulance ready, and remember, no circuses. You will receive last-minute instructions on where to find us. Here's part of that phone call.
I want to tell you one other thing. Sherri is now part of me. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Our souls are one now, okay? 4:58 a.m. No, I'm sorry, hold on a minute. 3:10 a.m. Saturday, the 1st of June. She handwrote what you received. 4:58 a.m. Saturday, the 1st of June.
Okay, Saturday, the 1st of June, 4:58 a.m.
Became one soul.
Became one soul. What does that mean?
No questions now. Please, to Sherri Smith, search no more. Blessings are near.
Do not kill my daughter, please. I mean,
We
please.
love and miss y'all. Get good rest tonight. Goodbye.
Wait a minute. He's gone, Mom.
This phone call was traced to a place called Jack's Landing, which was about 9 miles from the Smiths' home. The police got there about 15 minutes after the phone call was made, but the abductor was gone. On June 5th, 5 days after Sherri was taken, the Smiths received a call from the asshole again at 11:54 in the morning. This time, he gave them directions to where Sherri was located.
Hello?
Listen carefully. Take Highway 378 west to Traffic Circle. Take Prosperity exit. Go 1.5 miles. Turn right at sign. Moose Lodge number 103. Go 1/4 mile. Turn left at white frame building. Go to backyard. 6 feet beyond. We're waiting. God chose us.
They were probably terrified every time their phone rang.
Oh, I'm sure. The call was traced to a payphone 45 miles outside of Lexington, South Carolina. The Smiths held out hope that Sherri would be found alive, and they really wanted to go with the police to the spot that was given to them by the kidnapper. But the police said no. I mean, obviously, you don't want them there. Officers followed the directions, which took them to the edge of a wood line behind a building called the Masonic Lodge number 103. It's a building in Lexington's neighboring county called Saluda, and is off Highway 391 for anybody in South Carolina. There they found the remains of Sherri in the same baggy white shorts and black swimsuit she'd been wearing the last time her family saw her. She was on her back. She was missing all of her jewelry but one earring in her left ear and a gold necklace that Richard, her boyfriend, had given her. It was clear Sherri had been dead for days, as her body was extremely decomposed by the summer heat. The investigators had the disheartened task of letting the Smiths know that their daughter was dead. An autopsy was done on Sherri, but due to the advanced decomposition of her body, they couldn't determine the cause of death or the exact date of death. They did find adhesive glue in her hair, and chunks of her hair had been cut out. So they believe that her head had been wrapped in duct tape, and she was most likely suffocated, and then the killer cut the duct tape out of her hair. The next afternoon, Sherri's murderer made a phone call, but this time it wasn't to the Smiths' residence. It was to a local investigative reporter named Charlie Keyes. He contacted a reporter. The killer told Charlie that he couldn't live with himself and he wanted to turn himself in. He also wanted Charlie to say the following on the 10 o'clock news. Quote, "If anyone has any information, call Sheriff Metz. This is his home phone number."
This guy is obsessed with Sheriff Metz.
He wanted Charlie to give out Sheriff Metz's home phone number on the news. Charlie said he didn't think he could do that, but he would do his best. Then the caller said, quote, "Now, Charlie, please. It just went bad. I know her family and her, and, well, I just made a mistake. It went too far. All I wanted to do was to make love to her. I didn't know she had a rare disease, and it just got out of hand." He rambled on some more bullshit, told Charlie he would watch the news and then call Charlie back. And then eventually he would turn himself in. But it all ended up being bullshit. Then at 8:57 p.m., after the call to Charlie, that very same evening, a call came in to the Smith residence. It was a collect call, and the caller asked for Dawn Smith, claiming to be Joe Wilson. Dawn and Sherri's Aunt Beverly answered and got Dawn. The kidnapper told Dawn he was going to turn himself in, and then he said something that gave Dawn the chills, even more than what she had before. He said, quote, "This thing got out of hand, and all I wanted to do was to make love to Dawn. I've been watching Dawn for a couple of..." And then Dawn interrupted him and said, like, whoa, what do you mean, Dawn? And he corrected himself and said he meant to say Sherri.
Freudian slip?
Freudian slip. Poor Dawn was left listening to this psycho describe in detail what he did to Sherri.
Oh, did he really?
He told Dawn that he approached Sherri at the mailbox and originally asked her if he could take a picture of her. He snapped a couple photos and then he pointed a gun at her. He forced her into the car and he brought her to his house, where he tied her up to a bedpost. While she was tied up, he was generous enough to hold her head up and give her water to help with her dehydration. He said that Sherri and him, they talked for a while, and Sherri shared a lot of personal and intimate feelings with him. Sherri even told him that if she didn't already have a boyfriend, she would date him.
Stop it.
And I guess he believed that.
If she even said it.
According to this freak, he got really scared because Sherri's dehydration was getting out of control. So he gave Sherri a choice. She could die by a gunshot, a knife, or suffocation. He said to Dawn that Sherri chose suffocation and that Sherri actually allowed him to wrap her entire head with duct tape. He said she didn't cry at all during her captivity, and she was even smiling because she knew she'd be with God soon.
Do you believe this?
I do not believe that.
Okay.
As much faith as we all have in God.
Nobody wants to die.
Yeah, nobody wants to die. And she's clearly suffering with dehydration, being tied up with a psychomaniac. Of course she's crying. And my personal feeling is I think suffocation would probably be
the worst one.
Right?
Because a gun, you could be immediately killed. Exactly.
A knife to the heart's much quicker than suffocating. I mean, suffocation is one of my worst fears. I mean, I don't know, Sherri. I'm just saying that's not what I would pick.
It's not logical.
After she was dead, he removed the duct tape and commented to Dawn that he'd ripped out a lot of her hair while doing so. According to this psycho, Sherri requested for her body to be found on the 5th day of her death. Bullshit.
I was just going to say, I call bullshit on that one too.
He gave no reason as to why she would pick the 5th day because Dawn asked. He just said that's what she wanted and that she wanted to be found with her hands placed across her chest as if she was praying. The police traced this call to a truck stop in Great Falls, South Carolina, and once again, of course, no one was at that payphone. Sherri's funeral was held on June 7th, 1 week after her abduction, and it was a closed casket funeral. Later that afternoon, the Smiths received a collect call from Shari Smith. It was the psycho freak requesting to speak with Dawn.
This is just terribly cruel.
Sherri's killer claimed to have attended Sherri's funeral, and he asked Dawn if Sherri's hands were placed in the casket in a prayer position, as Sherri had apparently requested, according to this guy. He also told Dawn that he was part of the search party that had been looking for Sherri, and that he had passed through 2 roadblocks that had been set up by police, and they just let him go. They didn't take notice of him. Disturbingly, he told Dawn that he had her address at the college in Charlotte, and she could be expecting a letter from him in a few weeks. During these phone calls, you can tell he's developing an obsession with Dawn. This call was traced to a gas station in Augusta, Georgia, which was about 60 miles from the Smith home. After that, the call stopped, but the killer didn't. We're going to take a little infomercial break.
Hey everyone, if you go to our website, tntcrimes.com, you can find full unreleased episodes available for individual purchase. You can also join our membership where you get unlimited access to all of our unreleased episodes and early releases, mini episodes, and so many other awesome things. So go to tntcrimes.com, and thanks again for all your support.
As I stated, the killer didn't stop with Sherri. 25 miles from Sherri's home, exactly 2 weeks later, almost to the hour, 9-year-old, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Deborah May Helmick was playing with her 6-year-old sister Becky and their 3-year-old brother Woody in the front yard of their trailer in the Shiloh Mobile Home Park. Deborah May's mother left for work right when her father got home. Her father came home and he went inside to his bedroom and he was changing out of his work clothes while the kids were playing outside. A silver car drove past the children playing. Then it turned around and it slowly approached the kids. The driver got out of the car and grabbed Deborah May by the waist. He turned to 3-year-old Woody and said, "I'm coming back to get you." And then he threw little Deborah May kicking and screaming into his car. A neighbor named Ricky happened to be making orange juice next to an open window in the kitchen, and he heard the commotion. He ran outside, but as he did that, the driver sped off with Deborah May. Ricky ran into the Helmick trailer and told Deborah May's father that someone had just abducted Deborah May. The two of them got in a car and tried to find the car because it was only a few seconds behind him, but it was too late. The police were called, and Ricky was able to help them make a composite sketch of the kidnapper, which was released to the public. It looked a lot like the sketch of Sherri's kidnapper, only the guy had a beard. Days went by, and there were no credible tips. Then, on the 8th day of Deborah May's disappearance, the Smiths got a phone call at 2:17 a.m. It was a collect call from Shari Smith. Dawn answered it, and the murderer told her that God wanted Dawn to join Sherri.
That is super creepy.
That is so terrifying because her sister is dead, and this guy is telling her she's next. He said to her that the police couldn't protect her forever. He said, quote, "Maybe not this month or next month, this year or next year, but your time is near." Then he asked Dawn if she'd ever heard of Deborah May Helmick. And he proceeded to give Dawn directions and told her that Deborah May was waiting.
Turn right, Last dirt road before you come to stop sign at 2 Notch Road. Go through chain and no trespassing sign. Go 50 yards and to the left. Go 10 yards. Deborah May is waiting. God forgive us all.
This call was traced to a place about 50 miles from the Smith's residence at a payphone in a shopping plaza. Authorities followed the caller's directions, and it led them to a wooded area behind a no trespassing sign and a chain. And there they found the decomposed body of 9-year-old Deborah May.
Oh.
It had been over 90 degrees out for the past few days, and the weather helped speed up the decomposition, so her body was really badly decomposed. Clumps of Deborah May's hair was scattered around her body. Attached to one clump was a pink barrette that her mom recognized as the barrette that she had put in her hair earlier that day. Deborah May had chunks of her hair that were also cut out.
Similar to Sherri's?
Exactly.
Oh.
Deborah May was found with 2 pairs of underwear on her. One was cotton underwear that she'd been wearing when she was abducted, and the other pair was a bikini-style silk panties that nobody had ever seen before. They believe her cause of death was duct tape wrapped around her entire face.
Suffocating her?
Yes. Deborah May's parents told the authorities that the family had seen the story on TV about Sherri, and Deborah May had commented on how pretty Sherri was.
Oh.
And how sad it was that she was killed. And it was completely surreal to them to now see their daughter's photo on the news next to Sherri's photo. Investigators finally got the break they needed 27 days after Sherri was first abducted. Through EDA, the electrostatic detection apparatus process that I told you about before that helps decipher indentations in paper, they were able, on the second page, to pull 9 out of 10 digits of a phone number.
Was this from Sherri's last will and testament?
Yes. It was page 2. They were able to decipher 9 digits that looked like a phone number because they had the dashes in between. The first 3 digits were 205, which indicated it would be an Alabama phone number. The next 3 digits were 837, and that showed the number was in the Huntsville, Alabama area. The 3 digits after that, which I'm not going to say because I don't want anybody
Pranking the new owner of that?
Yes. Were visible. So they were only missing the last digit. So obviously they just added a digit. And they called until they found somebody who said they had some sort of connection or knew somebody in South Carolina. A young man in the Army named Joey Shepard said that his father, Ellis, and his mother, Sharon, lived in South Carolina. And they actually lived only 15 miles from Sherri's house. As you can imagine, the police were very interested in speaking with 50-year-old Ellis Shepard, who was a local electrician. Ellis agreed to speak with the authorities. He told them that he and his wife traveled a lot, and they went on an extended vacation in the middle of May, and they didn't return until June 3rd. Because they traveled so much, they often have one of Ellis's employees, 36-year-old Larry Jean Bell, house sit for them. Before they left on their mid-May trip, they left a detailed note on a legal pad of paper with Joey's name and number, along with some other texts that they thought would be helpful for Larry. They also told authorities that when they returned from their trip on June 3rd, Larry picked him up from the airport, and all he could do was talk about Sherri Smith's abduction.
No.
Weirder than that, Larry started calling Sharon Shepard Sherri.
Oh, no.
Nobody called Sharon Shepard Sherri. She didn't go by that name. When the Shepards got home, Sherri remembered seeing a long blonde hair on her couch. She just chalked up to Larry having one of his friends over, and she just picked it up and threw it in the trash. After their first trip The Shepherds left again a few days later for a shorter trip. And before she left, Sharon had told Larry how, fascinating and sad the Sherri case was. When she got back, as a favor, Larry had clipped out very neatly all these articles on Sherri's abduction. But not just from the local papers. He had gotten papers from all over the state of South Carolina. And he organized the clippings for Sharon Shepard.
Like, here's your little scrapbook about this girl's case.
Exactly.
That's not strange.
Sharon said when she saw the composite sketch in one of the papers, she had this terrible anxiety come over her. It was so disturbing to her because it looked like Larry that she actually approached her husband Ellis and asked him what he thought about the sketch looking like Larry. Ellis dismissed the notion, but he said he kept thinking about it. And he decided to see if his gun that he kept in a certain spot and told Larry about was still in the same spot. And when he looked, it wasn't.
Uh-oh.
It was actually found in the guest room where Larry was staying under the mattress. Larry offered no logical explanation for why he moved it. Ellis kind of just dismissed it. I mean, you could imagine the implication if it was Larry for the Shepherds. It would mean that 2 females were kidnapped and probably murdered in their house. Authorities immediately began checking on Larry Bell's background, and they discovered a very disturbing history. He was born in 1949 in Ralph, Alabama. In 1965, his family moved to Columbia, South Carolina. He graduated from high school and received some training in electrical work. In 1969, when he was 20, he married a 16-year-old, and he joined the Marines. Later that year, he was discharged from the Marines because he, quote, accidentally shot himself in the knee. In 1975, in Rock Hill, South Carolina, he approached a young college student at a shopping center parking lot, and he said, "Come go with me, let's go to Charlotte and party." When she rejected him, he pulled out a knife and he dragged her to his car. She screamed and she fought, and she was actually able to break free. In the interim, others heard her screams and called the police, so they were able to get Larry. Now this is going to piss you off. You ready to be pissed off?
No, I don't want to be pissed off.
Being pissed off is better than being sad.
That's true.
He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but they agreed to suspend the sentence, and he would get no jail time if he paid a $1,000 fine.
$1,000.
Which he did.
That's so messed up.
Right? Thank you. Later on that same year, while still on probation, he approached a woman in Columbia, South Carolina, and he pointed a pistol at her and tried to force her into his car. By the grace of God, she managed to escape, and he was later arrested and was sentenced to 2 years in prison.
A whole 2 years.
A whole 2 years. I guess his wife had had enough because she divorced him and took their son, because he had a little boy, out of state. While in prison, he saw a psychiatrist and was released 2 years later. He actually checked himself into a mental hospital on 2 separate occasions. He sought help for his urges to kidnap women. He was deemed to be a danger to women with a high likelihood of repeating his offense. But he didn't do anything that people, I guess, deemed important enough to sentence him for longer than 2 years. In February of 1979, he began a 6-month campaign of terror against a 10-year-old girl who lived in the apartment building next to his. He would call her house and say sexual obscenities to her over and over again. He was obsessed with her. 6 months later, he got arrested and he was given a 2-year suspended sentence.
Suspended? Even though he's got this report from the psychiatrist saying he's a danger.
Even though he's attempted to kidnap 2 other people.
Exactly. And he's terrorizing a 10-year-old.
But authorities would later find out that those were the crimes that Larry got arrested for, but they weren't all the crimes that Larry committed.
Why am I not surprised?
In looking at Larry's history, it only supported the idea that Larry's the one that did it. A warrant was issued for Larry's arrest, and he was picked up at a roadblock they had set up. When he got arrested, He said something like, "Oh, I'm assuming this is about those two girls." And then he said, quote, "Can I call my mama?"
That's just weird.
I want to bitch slap him.
I know.
Larry ended up talking to the police for hours. And let me tell you, he's definitely a weirdo.
If we haven't been convinced yet.
Yes, if you need some more evidence, I'm going to give it to you right now. When the police told him that they believed that he was responsible for the murders, he said, quote, "That's not the Larry Gene Bell that I know." He constantly referred to himself in third person, saying, "This Larry Gene Bell didn't do it."
Okay.
I love it, love it, love it when people talk about themselves in third person. Talia loves that. Larry then requested to speak to Dawn and Hilda.
Oh, no.
And they actually agreed to come to jail and talk to him.
Did they really?
They're very brave women. Once he started talking to them, they immediately recognized his voice, as the voice had been terrorizing them with those phone calls. But Larry said it was not him. He refused to admit that he did anything directly, but he did say that God would give him visions of the murders.
For shits and giggles? What? Weird.
He eventually admitted to an officer that he killed them, and he cleaned up the mess. Then he took the stuff he used to clean up the mess, and he threw it in a dumpster, and then took a long, cold, strong shower. The Shepherd's home where Larry had been staying was processed by forensic specialists, and they were able to find Sherri's hairs from her head and her pubic region in the bathroom and in the guest bedroom. They also found urine-soaked bed sheets, and using luminol, they discovered semen stains on the same sheets. But surprisingly, in all the evidence they found, there was no evidence of Deborah May. Larry lived with his parents at the time of the murders, even though he was staying at the Shepherd's, and they gave permission for their home to be searched. In Larry's room, they found a toy pistol. They also found a bunch of silky girls' bikini underwear, multiple rolls of duct tape, and 4 individual ropes that were each about 4 to 5 feet long. They also found a pair of Larry's shoes that had small spots of blood. Investigators discovered that Larry had a sister who owned a topsoil and gravel company. The company was actually located right across the street from the Shiloh Trailer Park entrance where Deborah May lived, and sometimes Larry would work there. Detectives started going through their unsolved cases, and they came across 3 that they believed were connected to Larry. The first one, her name is Denise Newsom Porch. She was last seen in July of 1975, and she lived only 300 yards away from where Larry lived. Denise was last seen in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she worked as a manager of Yorktown Apartments. This apartment complex was directly next to Larry's, and the last day anybody ever saw her alive, she was seen showing a man around the complex. The only thing missing from her apartment were the keys to the vacant apartments in the complex and a log of available units, which she would use to show prospective tenants. In her apartment was a note left for her husband in which she said she was going to show the apartment to a prospective renter, and she was never seen again. Another case was that of a 26-year-old woman who went missing in Charlotte, North Carolina in 1984. Her name was Sandy Cornett. And listen to this. Larry worked with Sandy's boyfriend, and Larry had even been to Sandy's house for a birthday party.
Okay, he did it.
Thank you. She disappeared from her house and was never seen again. Neither of these women's bodies have ever been found. Now, the third person that they suspect is connected with Larry, I don't know who it is. I did some research, and I couldn't find any information.
Well, he did that one, too. I'm going to decide. Yeah.
Allegedly. Larry agreed to talk to authorities about Sandy's disappearance. He stated that he didn't do it, but God gave him visions of what had happened to her, and that when they find her body, her hands will be placed as if she was praying, and her eyes will be closed, just like Deborah May and Sherri. Larry also indicated that he had visions of the 2 other young women's disappearances, but that's all he would say. He did mumble stuff about 3 women, so they're really convinced that he's involved in all 3 of them.
They just can't prove anything because they haven't found their bodies. Yeah.
Larry was given a mental evaluation, and he was deemed sane. Now, you'll like this. He was diagnosed with something I'd never heard of before, but I think about 5% of the population has it. It's called immature personality disorder.
That's an actual disorder?
Yes, it is. It basically means they're emotionally immature. It's exactly what you think it would mean.
And you're only saying 5% of the population,
right? Me, after a couple beers, I get that disorder too. The trial for the kidnapping and murder of Sherri Smith started on January 27th in 1986. At the trial, Larry wore a button that said, quote, "I am Larry Jean Bell. I am not guilty. I am the walrus."
Oh, jeez. This guy.
At one point during the trial, Larry stood up and proposed to Dawn.
Ew, poor Dawn.
He told the courts that he would like to marry her.
He sounds disgusting. He's just creepy, Talia.
He's worse than creepy. He's just evil. On February 27th, after only 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Larry guilty on all counts, and he was sentenced to death by electrocution. On March 3rd, 1987, a trial began for the kidnapping and murder of Deborah May. After only 1.5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Larry again guilty on all counts, and he was given a second death sentence. His sentence was carried out on October 4th in 1996, and he was the last person to be put to death in the state of South Carolina. Dawn ended up winning Miss South Carolina in 1986.
Oh, did she really?
And she was second runner-up for Miss America that same year.
Wow.
She sings Christian songs, and she has a ministry that takes her across the country where she sings and speaks the word of God. She wrote a book, but I didn't read it. And it's on forgiving Larry. Sherri's mother, Hilda, she also wrote a book, and it's called The Rose of Sherri. She talks about how, they forgive Larry, and it's all their faith in God. And I'm just like, God bless them.
They are much bigger people than I would be.
I know, me
I think
too.
That would be a very difficult journey to go on, to forgive a murderer who killed your child.
And pray for him.
Exactly.
I also got some information from a book by Rita Shuler called Murder in the Midlands. So that's where I got my info from. And also there's a court case. That is the damage that Larry Jean Bell has put upon this world.
I'm glad he's no longer in this world.
Thank you for listening to that.
Thank you for telling me. This was a very sad story.
But if you were to learn about the Smith family, they're very inspiring people that I hope to someday be half as good of a person as all of them. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to subscribe and follow us and listen to us. And if you want to become a member, please go to patreon.com/TNT Crimes or our website, TNT Crimes, where we have lots of full episodes and mini episodes available and bonus material.
You can also find us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
So check us out on all our social media at TNT Crimes. And thank you for your support and have a great week.
Thank you very much for listening. We appreciate you all so much.
We do. And next week, Tanya's going to have an absolutely awesome episode for you guys all. So stay tuned.
Until next week.
Bye.
Bye.